KFM Hot Seat, brought to you by Nile Gold. The coffee we drink is supplied by Ban Cafe. In the Hot Seat, Teddy Nanozi, Nicholas Sengova, John Gastinas, and Chris Obore. Chris, politically, what was the significance of the drama that we saw in Parliament yesterday?
The significance that we have politicians who go by the wind, like my Muzungu friend was saying. They also get excited like the Ugandan public. We have got them, thieves, go club. They don't even sit down to analyze. But if we put this in perspective, yes, Makubuya signed the letters. I know, and I have letters signed by Makubuya allocating this money. I'm not sure whether it was not an informal or formal directive from President Museveni. And I ask the question, who has benefited a lot from corruption in this country? The answer may not be far from President Museveni. Why haven't we challenged him that you are the greatest beneficiary? If so, and why are we running for Kabakumba? Why are we running for Bbumba? Why are we running for Makubuya? Because he is able to manipulate us and remain a controlling person. And we tend to blame, of course I know Bbumba, right from when she was in Uganda Development Corporation, something, she was an accountant there. There's a whole history about her character there, how she used to work. That is fine. But then there is this one liberator who brought them back and said, we are going to remove things of the past. Seeing the things of the past exist, I am angry with the MPs, with the ministers, because they see these things. But again, we need to put things in perspective. In Uganda, there has never been a report published of investigations into death of any profile person. Talk about Kaira, when the regime was still new. Talk about Mayombo, your fellow Mutoro. You don't know what killed him. There was an investigation. Talk about Ayume. Talk about there was an investigation carried out by the state. They announced the investigation. They never announced the findings. Talk about Bukanya's son. Those are political statements to people who serve in a regime. We might push them hard to say, lead by example. But I don't think there's anyone who wants to become an example of death. Everyone has got their own ambitions. So, what I'm saying, if a government cannot be transparent, even where life is involved, how can it be transparent where money is involved? So we begin to ask questions. And we're not seeing the silence from that constituency that brought in the regime to power, called the military. It has more problems than we discuss them. Why are they silent? What is happening there? Is Makubuya an equation in Museveni staying in power? Definitely not. These are tools. And the owner of the tool dispenses has and when he requires to dispense. So now what we are doing, we are now blaming the tools. But you're not tackling the manufacturer, the carpenter, who shapes the tools. This is the problem.
The question I ask Chris is, politically, how much will their departure from cabinet impact on the political fortunes of either the movement government or President Yoweri Museveni?
That is an assumption that the movement operates politically. I understand it to operate militarily. And this political thing is just for my Muzungu friend. When he arrives here, there are democratic institutions, there is a parliament, there is a party, but I understand this system as a military system. And I can inform you, I've just been talking to a few people. In October, around the end of the year, a small group was in Rwakitura called, and I can name my friend, General Kale Kaihura. Saleh is the one who coordinated the meeting. There was my friend, the man who was going to South Africa, Muhoozi Kainerugaba. There was your OB, the Chief of Staff of the Air Force, Brigadier Rakitarate, and the question pops. Now, really, that was the group. Mm-hmm. And there was Mujira. And they say, now, if Muze, who should take over? And then Rakatarate says, but why don't we talk about the gentleman there? And the question ended there. Before long, you saw changes coming. Where is Mujira? Nakasongola. Kale Kaihura, I think he was supposed to be the CDF. And he saw fights in the army. But now, because you have tried to blackmail the man in your newspapers as brutal or what, you might see somebody in CMI. I've never had a brigadier Bakanahon, somebody. He is now in a strategic place. Be there, intelligence. Moses is in Entebbe Air Force. So this is how Museveni thinks. Now, if you think that what he has done is wrong, how do you counter that? Not through Bbumba, not through. I am saying, what is in tongues in this?
Speaking in tongues.
He has reorganized his troops, ready for any challenge.
We're discussing resignation of ministers.
Now, I'm saying, what is the significance? It's supposed to cause a better political environment in this country, but will it? I'm saying no. How are you countering Muse's reorganization, which is not political? So he's there. And we are here, Bbumba. It is good for us, the media, to keep talking, exercising our intellectual excitement, this kind of theory. But the Museveni talk on the theory. And Charles, this Museveni plan began at Nabingo, which was the headquarters of NRA when we were capturing Kampala. They held a meeting. He was supposed to rule from 86 to 90. Organized elections, rule for one term. And he announced. After that, what happened? 97, Besigye was in a group of historical. That started at Kampala Club. We all know that. They were discussing that this man is changing a course. What happens? That's the beginning of Besigye departing from the system. So he began building himself. So what if you not send to the tools that Makubuya, Bbumba, like you said in parliament, there's a beginning, there's an end. You should have known when you were entering that there will be an end. And unfortunately, the end has been circumstantial.
Teddy, let me turn back to you. If you have a cabinet supposed to be functioning, you have 3 ministers being forced to resign outright. You have 3 who said they stepped aside, whatever that means. I've never understood what stepping aside means. You have another 4 who were never allowed to take up their positions. How does it impact? And then the other thing people have been talking about since yesterday is a majority of some of those members of parliament and the public opinion to smell blood and believe it is possible to do something. Doesn't that have a long-term impact?
I believe it does. Of course, like John said, that yesterday's the resignation of the ministers seemed, people were looking at the way the ministers seemed to be unremorseful. Saida Bbumba was particularly almost celebrating. She was defiant the way she submitted her resignation. So there is a sense people feel that these resignations are just a ploy, a way to play on the public's...
Cosmetic.
Yes, cosmetic. But I think in the long term, it's good to see that, yes, ministers can resign. And also it's... Chris says the real culprit should be the guy at the top. But the guy at the top is not very easy to reach with either censure motion or any action of parliament. So it is easy. It is not useless to actually be able to shake up his lieutenants and be able to take some of them down and question and promote a public debate that believes that something can be achieved through the democratic process. Yes.
Nicholas, in a cabinet of 73 members, you won't even notice that some people are attending or not attending.
But
you don't have an approach.
Charles, you know me well enough to know that I don't believe in those things of yours, of cabinet. I am a student of Yoweri Museveni. I have studied him, I read his lips, and I like to follow what he says.
I didn't know that until now.
Just wait. He said in I think 2006 or the election that was, he said that in 96, if you had voted
Kawanga
Kawanga
Semugere,
Semugere, we would not have accepted. Now, what does that tell you? That there are many ways of doing these things. One, you either go the political route or the violent route, and you are ever. I like the way Yoweri Museveni approaches most of these things. When he comes to parliament, he starts by telling you his history. This happened when we had we had beaten these people at Kabamba. Then on this one happened just after we had captured so and so. Just after so he's telling you that the milestones, the major milestones are the military ones, the violent ones, not these things you are discussing in parliament. So a cabinet minister, you've seen how cabinet ministers are overall. You know them. You've covered them in parliament, They talk to you in the dead of the night and say, this, I hear this. They even at times consult you and say, do you know what is happening? In State House, and you wonder a cabinet minister. You know very well how many of those aides in State House blackmail some of these people. You know the stories, Charles. Don't pretend here on air. You know?
John,
So, no, don't run away. I'm still
away.
telling you. I'm still telling you. A Museveni cabinet minister is not like what you have in Gastino's country, that Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, can come to Africa and really talk like a Secretary of State, you know? Says, this is our position, you know? Many of them he has to wait. Some of them don't even know what is taking place and all those things.
And annoying
So
thing,
then
Nicholas,
come
you
here
find
and start
MPs saying,
discussing.
next is Karoro, next is Muloni. Why do you go for
Then
people
you
the
come here
president
and
says,
start
I ordered the
discussing.
Muloni to sign the agreements. Then you say, we want to go for Muloni. These
Why
cowards of MPs, go for the man who ordered them.
So
Why
this-
are you
this-
disturbing
okay,
these
let-
women?
Let me ask you a quick question,
This
John.
excitement you get
Yeah.
about is it smelling of blood when
Blood of vulnerable people.
Kirunda Kiveid India wasn't there a smell of blood? What happened after that? Kutesa, where is he today? He
That's
came
the
back
sixth
to
parliament.
Yeah, he came back after some time. Muhozi came back after some time. So what?
John, a
what
quick
blood
question
are
to
they
you.
smelling?
Some of these exercises are good for appeasement of the actual people who hold the levers for this country, the political leadership and the economy. The Washington Consensus. Is that what they call it?
No, but how does I don't see how you're connecting it to the Washington
what-
Consensus. I know what the
I'm
Washington
asking,
Consensus is. But
I'm trying to look
Yeah.
at the people who pull the levers, who send the money here, and who determine how long a regime will stay or not stay if they pull out their support. The Western diplomats,
Sure.
Western countries. Are these kinds of things likely to appease?
Oh, I think that's what they're designed for. I think they are. The term was batted around earlier, cosmetic, and they are meant to appease. When the going gets tough, here, we've seen very clearly a tendency to fall back on force. But in the meantime, of course, they want to put a good face on things to the general public here, regionally, and around the globe, and that's where politics plays a role. But once politics get too messy, the stick comes out. And we've seen that time and time again.
Well, there's a company been hired from Ireland to clean the image of the police. It's the lead story in the Saturday Monitor. Being paid, I think, $1 million.
Image of government, not
the
police.
image of government. $1 million, which they are going to earn to clean the image of government in the international. And that is on top of the Whitaker Group, some group in London and others that have been hired before. But let's take the break and come back to this discussion.
It's a sign of desperation.
It's live, it's hot, provocative, and digs deep into the issues. It's